Hello, I'm Nobby. Welcome to my workshop. 4 days ago, on the 16th of October, I visited the Midlands Model Engineering Exhibition, which is at the Warwickshire Events Centre. Before I get into the video, I'm just going to show you a short sequence of images that I took at the show. It's a section only about 5 minutes long. They're basically sort of, if you like, snapshots of some of the models that were on display there and in the various competitions at the show. I didn't film very much of this because I like to have a really good look around the show and talk to various people there. There's a couple of people that I wanted to specifically speak to, if in fact they were going to be at the event. And there were some bits and pieces on my shopping list that I was going to look out for. So I'll show you the little sequence of film first, and then I'll show you the items that I actually found. In fact, I did find all but one, all of the items that I was looking for. So bear with me, and the sequence is coming up.
Very viable solution because they want to get diesel engines out of the tanks because of the oil slicks and EPI and the electrical belts. Oh right, and you know about trying to get the diesels.
Basically, because temps are going to be self-monitoring. She said, what's that mean? I said, well, on the way home today, I said, I've broke the speed limit. Popped into the police station, they can't see it. She said, I said, no, it's a big temps difference.
That's it.
Then they introduced the computer systems, which are random.
Yeah, what's your heat on this?
Also, they're random. And so then, when they did a survey with random, with fixed points, and I said to my boss, that's not going to work.
No.
I said, because if there's a pollution here.
Unfortunately, I still prefer a hard copy, which is getting more and more expensive. But it's can't be applied with online,
I'm also. Well, there isn't anything generally in the stock price that's going to be critical to that. So
That's very true. But it is a highlight. so good. So I have got yours. Let's see. I have got yours. It is quite big. My home was on AliExpress.
Oh yeah, so you know the LFB's FIU, it's basically the same truck that they've got. Rather than the pump tender, it's the rescue unit.
The one I've built.
Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing those little images. I realise now I should have put those images at the very end of the video in case you didn't want to look at that and you could have stopped there. But anyway, I've brought the camera in onto the workbench a little bit closer so you can see the items that I bought. And these are items that I was actually looking for on the day. One was, I think I mentioned in a previous video, this is one of the chucks I had for either the lathe or the milling machine, and it was one that I think this one came with the Chinese mini lathe when I bought it. It was bought second hand, and it didn't actually have a chuck key. Well, luckily I had another chuck that I could use at the time, so what I was looking for was a chuck key for it. I tried a couple of the vendors there that sell sort of second-hand tools and machinist equipment. One of them didn't have any spare chuck keys at all. One of the larger vendors there did. They had a box of them, all old second-hand ones of all different shapes and sizes, but to my mind they were sort of rather expensive. They wanted £5 each for the chuck keys. I thought if push came to shove and I couldn't find one somewhere else, I would, one, either forget it or to look for one another day. But I went along to the one of the biggest stands there is RDG Tools, and I asked one of the chaps there if they had spare, because they sell all new equipment, if they had any spare chuck keys. And he said, well, have a look along the section where all the new chucks are, and if you can find a chuck that fits a chuck key roll that fits your chuck, which I did, we can sell it to you separately. And in fact, the first one I picked up, I recognised the size I needed, and this is absolutely perfect. So I pulled that out and I said, well, this is the one that's going to work. Can I buy that off? He said, yeah, that's okay. It's £2, which I thought was very reasonable indeed. So this chuck is now complete and sort of ready for use. It's not one that I need to use immediately, but rather than have this sort of sitting around the workshop without the chuck key, at least every chuck, key chuck that I've got in the workshop now has a key with it, which I'm sort of quite pleased about. The first stand I went to was Myford, because what I wanted to buy were some new oil nipples for the Myford lathe. I'm pretty sure that some of them on there are either not working or not working properly. So what I intend doing is going round them all bit by bit and replacing them with brand new ones. There are from Myford apparently some variants of these, but I bought these which are sort of nearest to the type that are on my ML7R lathe. So I've got that's a pack of 10 of them. I can't remember how many there are on the lathe. It's either 9 or 10, so this should enable me to replace all of those and make sure that all of them are working properly. And when I remove them from the lathe, at least I can clean all round the threaded holes that these go into to make sure that they're all going to work perfectly. They're sort of fairly standard items really. They're threaded to BA, and they have the sort of standard tiny little ball bearing in here, which when you press the oiler into it, that forces the little ball bearing in and lets oil pass down onto the various parts of the lathe. So that was the second item that I was really looking for. Another thing that was on my shopping list, what I wanted to find was a good quality machinist set square, but one that is longer than the others that I have. The other quality ones I've got are all made by Moore and Wright, which this one is also made by Moore and Wright. I've got a sort of a fairly short set square and one about 5 inches in height here. This one measures just a fraction over 7 inches in length here. I have already tested this just to make sure it is absolutely right. I mean, I did examine it very, very carefully all around to make sure there's no damage on it. Obviously this is old, not that old. It does actually have an acquisition date stamp on it. This was obviously made for government use. It's dated 1982 and has the inverted arrow next to it. And this is Moore and Wright number 400 set square, and it was very reasonably priced. There was a choice of a couple of these, one just a fraction less expensive than this, but not in as nice order as this. In fact, this is probably in better condition than the other two that I have. They had all sorts of different set squares there. There's a couple of other ones of different types that I would have dearly liked to have had as well, but I had a set amount of pocket money with me that I could spend. So obviously some things you look at, there's so many things at that exhibition that I would have loved to have been able to buy, but you just have to let things go. I mean, you could spend an absolute fortune there if you were able to, and you could afford to. Anyway, that was the third item I was looking for. What I also wanted to get was some steel material. The model engineering exhibition, this one is the only one really that I can get to now, the Midlands exhibition, which is on for 4 days, or 16th to 19th of October. The sister exhibition to this one was the one that used to be at Alexandra Palace, which sadly it no longer happens for whatever reasons. They don't have that one now, so this is the only model engineering show that I can actually get to. There are plenty others in England, but unfortunately geographically they're all beyond my reach now. Sadly, but because of poor health, I'm not able to drive anymore, so all the exhibitions that I used to go to are just out for me now. It's a pity that there are not any sort of a bit closer to me. And when I was lucky with this one, because my eldest son offered to drive me there and walk round with me for the day, which was very nice. I mean, he has an interest in rather heavyweight engineering, but he sort of accompanied me around, so that was really nice. Anyway, the metal stock I got, I wanted some steel in 1 inch square and 3/4 inch square. It's for 2 projects that I want to do, well, either later in the year or next year. It's going to be there in stock ready for when I want to do this. But obviously by buying material like this at the show, you save an awful lot of money in postage. You can imagine, I haven't weighed these, but I mean, you could imagine the weight of this and how much that would cost to post. Probably almost as much as one of these bars cost, I imagine. So I've got that here. It's 2 separate projects, which I may mention at some later date. One of them I'm not going to show because it's a repeat of something I've done before, so I'll probably just show you the end result of that. Now, as I mentioned, there's so much there that that you see at the exhibition that you would love to have, but a lot of them sort of in cost of just out of my pocket at the moment. But while I was looking around, on one of the stands, which has the most fantastic range of engineering tools and equipment, I guess the guy that has this company buys up businesses that companies that have gone out of business, or workshops, retired engineers and so forth, and sells all these tools off. And there was a box there of tap wrenches, and I had a rummage through and I found this. I had looked to buy one of these quite some years ago, in fact. It's a patented design tap wrench made by Eclipse. This model is model number 245, and it's for 1/8 to 1/4 inch tap sizes, 3mm to 6mm, made in England, and as I mentioned, it has a UK patent on it as well. I don't know whether these are still available. I know Eclipse in one form still exists, but when I discovered these basically by looking at things on eBay, I thought, oh, that's such a wonderful design, I'd love to have one of these. But they always seem to go for large amounts of money, perhaps because they are a little bit rarer than the normal ones that we see. So I never managed to find one that I could really justify buying. So some years back, I thought I could make one of these actually as a project. I made one actually before I had a channel, so it wasn't something I could actually show. And this is the one that I made. It's just slightly longer and slightly wider, basically because the material I used was a piece of material I already had. This was a piece of hot rolled bar stock. I knew how the mechanism works. I didn't follow the exact way that Eclipse did it by putting these sort of guidance strips on here, pinning them actually onto the moving part of the jaw here. I mounted mine on either side like that, but the mechanism works in exactly the same way. And I also put the little machine depressions on here on both sides, so you've got, you know, the means of swinging that round while you're tapping. And I use that mostly over any of the other tap wrenches I've got. But then I guess just over a year ago I decided to remake one of these, but make them smaller. And I did do a video on this. I made these two little ones. I thought, well, rather than make just one, I'll make two. I made them in exactly the same way, also pinning them on the outside, not the way that that they'd done it. I realised that probably making them the way clips did would actually have been better and probably easier. Eclipse, in fact, do have a smaller version of this. They make one which is about half the length of this, about 3.5 inches long. But on that one, it does have a very, very small range here. It's only 0 to 1/8. This is 1/8 or quarter. The range on my one is bigger than that, so these will take slightly larger taps. And when I use these a huge amount, purely because they are so small, and when I'm using quite a lot of the BA taps, these are ideal, being so small. For very sensitive tapping, they're absolutely ideal. It was a great project, and I really enjoyed making these. These were the divots, or whatever you want to call them here, are made with a ball end mill, the same as with that. In fact, it was the same ball end mill. In fact, the size of those are only just sort of like a fraction smaller, but I used the same one for both of those. And these were made out of cold rolled stock, which I bought in exactly this size. Just sort of obviously had to round the ends off, and the only difficult part, I suppose, was machining that part out in the centre here. The ends here have to be squared up with a file, and that part filed out with a square file to give you, obviously on both parts, to give you that little profile in there. So that was quite that was a nice find. I was very, very pleased to find that, and actually at I felt a very, very reasonable price, probably just a fraction under half of what you would probably pay for one of these on eBay. There's another guy at the exhibition I always visit. He sells a lot of products which are or redundant products from British Aerospace. And in fact, I think that's what he calls his stand at Aerospace Tools. But one thing he does have there, he always has a very wide range of files. And there's one size of file that I wanted to buy a new one. This one. So the cross-cut file, but the important thing for me, it has a safety edge. I mean, this size and type of file I do use a great deal, and these are sort of, they are good quality ones. There's no manufacturer's name on them, but they are nice quality files. And when I've probably had a couple of these in the past from him, and they're very reasonably priced as well, to compare to probably what you would pay, what the Americans call box stores. So I bought myself another one of those. It wasn't particularly on my shopping list, but I thought, well, as I saw he was there this year, I would buy another one for the workshop. And as I say, as you wander around, and various things you see there, there are things that I saw there which I would really love to own. On the stand that I bought this from, He had a couple of magnetic chucks, not magnetic chucks for use on a lathe. These are ones that you would mount on a milling machine. Obviously for my milling machine it would have to be quite small, but he did have two sort of fairly small sized ones, and not made in China. That these were, well, one I looked at was made in England, and the other one I think from memory was made in Spain. They were really good quality ones as well, but unfortunately both of them were, you know, far out of reach for me. But that's, again, it's something that perhaps one day I'd get one, because I'd like to have one that is small enough to use on my mini mill, because the other thing is, I will show you one day. I've not got them on hand to show them immediately. I do have some of the hold downs that you use on magnetic chucks. If you're familiar with those, they're blocks of steel and brass in a sort of a sandwich pattern, which you can lock down onto a magnetic chuck to hold materials in place. And I've got some of those. I've also got an angled version one as well. I got these actually given to me a long time ago, actually, and I had thought of just sort of giving them away to someone that has a magnetic chuck, but I thought, well, maybe one day I'll have one and I can put them to use. Anyway, moving on. Not long before we were actually due to leave the show, we went to another one of the large vendors, and I looked through all the various bits and pieces that he had there, and I spotted something there that grabbed my attention immediately, and this was probably my star buy. This is an ER25 collet chuck, but it's a collet chuck which is actually made, well, this particular one rather, is made to go onto the Myford lathe. It's a apart from the collet nut, it's a one-piece design, and you see it's threaded in the back with the 1.1/8" Myford thread and the register here, and it takes as I say, ER25 collets. I was looking to buy one of these. I saw quite a number of different people on YouTube using these on their lathes. I do have a collet chuck, a really large one that I bought for the Chinese mini lathe, but it isn't very good, and in fact it is not accurate either. When I have used it, it takes a bit of setting up to try and get anywhere near accurate. But I was looking to buy one of these. I did talk to another YouTuber about these who told me where they thought they bought their one from. Now there is one of these sold by it's sold by SLB Tools, but the one they sell is made in two parts. Apart again from the nut, this bit is made in two parts. It's the collet chuck and then an adapter on the back that adapts it to the Myford lathe, and you have to machine the two parts to work together, which I don't think is a difficult thing to do. But the sober one is made as a sort of a one-piece item. Now this alone new sells for all but I think a penny, £70, and this was £30. I thought, well, I'm going to treat myself to that. Just about had enough money left to buy this, so I've bought it sort of ready to use. Just paid for it, brought it back. I mean, the box looked in really nice condition, and then I thought what I'll do, I'm not going to say this morning, because this is, I'm showing you that, well, it was done this morning you're seeing this on Sundays, so this is a few days later. So the following day, on the Friday, I've taken this into the workshop, confirmed that this goes on the Myford lathe perfectly. It fits the nose of the Myford perfectly. I remove the nut. I could have shown you all of this, couldn't I? And I set this up with a lever gauge on the inside surface here in three different positions going back, and then turn the spindle round. And this is it's less than a thou run out, which I think is really good, compared to all the chucks that I've got for the Myford lathe. None of them will give me that accuracy, other than using a 4-jaw chuck and clocking everything in. But if you're wanting to work with fairly small round stock, that's is a little bit sort of inconvenient. I have got obviously ER collet chucks, but the one I have on the milling machine is an ER32, and I have a few collets for that. I don't have a complete set of collets in ER32, because if you buy a complete set, there are inevitably some that you may possibly never use. So what I did with that when I got the milling machine is I just gradually bought collets one at a time as I needed various sizes. So I've probably got the equivalent about half a set. And the ER32 will take collets up to 20 millimeters. This will take collets up to 16 millimeters, which for the usage that I would eventually put this to on the Myford lathe, it is going to be absolutely fine for me. So now I've got this, at some point in the future, I'll be able to buy some collets for this. It's not something I can do immediately, but a bit later on I'll get some collets for this one, for the R25. Now, when I examined this, it did look there probably a few tiny little marks on it here, and the condition of the box. To me, it didn't look as though it had hardly been used. And when I examined it on the inside, it still has the packing grease on it. I think sometimes they use stuff, I think it's called Cosmoline, and it's in all the threads here and here, and on the around the Myford thread on the inside and around here as well. I did on the inside just wipe this, literally only wiped it around really with my finger to make sure there was nothing that would interfere with using the lever gauge I used. In fact, the gauge I used was this one, which is probably, I'll get the box undone, probably one of my most accurate ones. This one, the Verdict one, measures to half a thou, and it has a very, very delicate probe on it. So that's the one I use to measure the inside in sort of 3 different positions on the inside here. But I mean, I'm very, very pleased with that. It is one thing that I really wanted to have. So I've got it now. So, but if you look at the, I don't know if you can see that, you look at the nut, and if you looked at the locking nut on my ER32 one, it's in a dreadful state because it's been used so much. But this doesn't really have any real usage marks on it. I've managed to find, I already had a couple of these wrenches. I found one that could actually be used with it. So I won't, this obviously doesn't come with this. Obviously I could buy the proper wrench, because I think this is actually a spanner wrench for locking nuts on the milling machine, but I think that would work quite happily with this, so I can use that. So there we are. So was my final purchase there. Very pleased to get that. So that's gonna just have to be put away for a while. Probably next year I'll be able to sort of source some a range of useful collets for it. But they are pleased with that. But anyway, that's what I bought. I hope that I've not bored you too much, and just wanted to sort of show you what I found when I was there. This year there wasn't a huge amount on my shopping list. The last one I went to, I was working on a project at that point. I think that was the PM research engine I was doing, and there was a lot of bits and pieces that I needed. So I went to lots of different vendors there to collect all the bits I needed. Also, one of my favourite stands also there is this company, Tracy Tools. They do, they're specialists in taps and dies, but they do drills and all sorts of things. They're a very old, well-established company. I've bought lots of stuff for them over the years by mail order and at the show. So there we are. That's it. So thank you for joining me and sticking with me on this and allowing me to show you some of the lovely things I've picked up. When I hope a lot of you managed to get along to the show. It's to my mind it's changed just slightly. I don't think the exhibits are as big as they used to be. Now, there was one trader that has come back to the show after a gap of quite a number of years. That's Warco, who do Warco lathes and milling machines. That's the company called it's Warren Tools. They were back there, but only on a very, very small stand. From in the past, when the show was at the Alexandra Palace, they used to have an absolutely enormous stand with dozens of machines there on display that you could have a look at. But I suppose there is obviously a great expense involved in doing this for companies, and I do know this from my working life where I had to organise the exhibition stands for the company I work for. Not engineering, something completely different, but so I do know what that's all about. Anyway, I'll stop rabbiting on now, and thanks again for joining me, and thanks again to all the lovely subscribers to the channel, and I hope to see you soon with another video on me actually doing something. Bye for now.